Hi, this is LT Survival. Well, I'm in the inside studio because it's raining like crazy outside, so that's why I decided to do the review of the show Alone on History Channel. It's available on the internet, and you could watch this show. It's really a survival show, but unlike the other one, this one seems to be unscripted. So they took 10 people. I think there's 2 Canadian and 8 American, and they throw them in the wild on North Vancouver Island, Pacific side, and they say survive as long as you can. So they had 10 basic items, and they started their journey. So they are probably now at the 4th day in. For those, it's a second episode that just aired, and we'll have the 3rd episode this week shortly. So stay tuned, we'll be right back.
It's wet. It's raining again. And the pool's eventually going to overflow. Too much.
Well, the concept of the show is taking survival expert, or as evaluated by them, survival specialist. The guys have a really well documented background. There's 2 Canadian and the rest are American, and they're guys that have channels on YouTube. I guess that's how they approach the people. And History Channel has done up to now probably the most realistic survival show. The concept is simple. Every single man was given 10 items from a list of 40 to bring with them. Then they were drop off in North Vancouver Island on the rainforest, on the boreal rainforest. Basically, it's not the most pleasant environment, and it is probably the scariest part of Vancouver Island I've seen. It is humid, it is wet, and they're in a spot where they don't know what they're going to find around them. So it seems to be there's nothing planned. I would say the production knew exactly what they were doing, because that territory seems to be unhappy about visitors, if I can say so. The first episode, well, I'm not going to go in detail, but I think that Josh tapped out on after the first night. He was basically sleeping in a bear's den with bear. So I guess fear took over, and it's one of the enemies of survival. So when you're confronted to one of your fear and have no means to have fire to protect you or defend yourself with weapons beside the simple knife you have on your belt, well, it is understandable that psychology of survival is going to bring in, and that show up to now has shown that. So, the psychology aspect of survival, and they're showing also, and you're seeing the enemies pop up. The enemies of survival's thirst, craving for food, cold, wet, all kinds of temperatures. Okay, I'm not going to enumerate them. On a later video, we'll make some of those video about survival, the basis of survival. And well, that guy got the best of him, not prepared to live amongst bear, which nobody would be. Hopefully you kind of tend to stay away from bears. They're inquisitive creature, sniff you up, and you never know how they're going to react. If they have cubs, well, that might be really, really dangerous. So he had not much chance to relocate it. Arrived on the island, on the part of the island where he was, basically when he scouted out He fell almost straight into the den of the bear, and then found the cubs, found the bear, and the night after, the bear found him. Uh, Nothing bad happened, but that got to scare you up a little. Nobody's ready for that. Nobody's even thinking about that when they're practicing survival. Usually, we're in an area where we're not exposed to bear that much, and once you're not ready to coexist with bear in your almost in your tent, then it's difficult to stay there. And we can understand him uh, not really ready to die for uh, the show, even though there's a prize at the end. It's quite an interesting prize, but nobody's ready to die for that. It's a show. It's not a life and death situation where you either come out or you don't, and you have no choice about it. He had the choice, so he tapped out. Second episode was really really interesting. You see thirst coming into play where they didn't have the first night water at all. It was raining, so some of them thought about setting up a tarp to catch water, to get at least started with some water. But you see the same trend where animals were playing around. There's wolf, there's cougars, and there's bear. And you hear the wolf pretty much. Another guy that tapped out in that episode, I have not got his name yet. I would have to rewatch them. Just watch the second episode, and I didn't write it down. He was basically surrounded by wolves. Same principle. Wolf sniffed him out. He heard about it. His brain started playing games with himself, and then it went down. He just couldn't support it and tapped out. So, I mean, the fear can be overwhelming, and the fellow is an American, and he's used to have weapons with him to be prepared. Us Canadians don't usually carry weapon at all in the woods, so we have our knives, and that's all we have. And weapons, handguns are not permitted in Canada pretty much. You cannot roam the forest with handguns. If it's hunting season, you're allowed the rifle, but you have to have the permits, which is probably a big difference in our approach to wilderness survival than the American counterpart, where some states will allow you to open carry or conceal and carry your weapon. So if you have a firearm, bear the bear is not necessarily a big concern because you can fire upon. And pepper spray not necessarily working that great with bears. Sometimes they just shrug it off and get angry, and you don't want that. That's a last resort thing. So on the second episode, if I come back, that guy that tapped out, he basically wasn't used to be unarmed at all, and that with the fear of wolves being on the ridge 20 meters away, dealt the final blow. I mean, he couldn't figure how he would survive if he didn't have any equipment to defend himself. That's unfortunate, but that's what's going to play against you. I mean, if there's something you're unprepared to do, that thing is going to bite you back. And unfortunately, that happened also to this guy. And pretty courageous to him to have stand up all night and to have lived that night through with wolves howling all around. But at the morning, he was pulled out, and he was pretty emotional about it because he thought he would die basically on that island. Then on the episode, and that was the beginning of the episode. So then on that episode, we saw really the quest for water for most of the participants. Not all of them, should I say, because they were drop off in a saltwater environment on the Vancouver Island, which is rigged all over with inlets and things like that. But it's all salt water, and salt water is not drinkable. You don't want to drink it, even with the trick that Bear Grylls does. Nope, not a good idea. And and it's not the same type of show. I mean, you can do it if you're planning on to it and then exiting and making sure you're not turning sick. But on a real life show, you won't be able to do it. So they have water all around it, but no clean water. So catching the rain was probably the best strategy at the beginning when they set up camp. So they had to either leave a tarp out to catch the rain, or find a way of making their shelter a rain catcher at the same time. So first night they went without, and second night most of them went without also. Some of them caught water with tarp, which is a big help. And then they scouted around. And then you have the question about the drop off site. Well, I guess the production designed those sites to put the challenge in. And let me explain. Usually when you fall into survival, you try to find the best site that will give you the water, the food, the resources to build and complement the food that you're going to be taking, and you try to have that in the least space. Well, most of the site, I would say half the site were kind of okay. The guys could make do with what they had in location, but some of the site, I think, were designed to have them question, am I staying in that position or not? And that's a big question, because as thirst come in and you don't find clean water, and then your faculty is starting to be a little challenged, and that will up the challenge again. So some of them had to decide whether to stay. They scouted for the second day the whole area around them. They moved a lot. Some of them broke in sweat, and they had unfamiliar terrain and everything. Most of them unfamiliar forests. So basically, weren't necessarily prepared for that type of woods. So the thirst became a big factor. And then they had to decide if they moved or stay. Well, one of them participant, Joe, decided to cross the river. At low tide, that river was crossable, so he made the move and found himself a great site nearby, not so far away. He could build his shelter, he could build fire, he could boil his water. He found a stream and everything, and that got him very well situated. At that point, when I saw that part of the video, I thought, yeah, this guy might just get around and do it, and just have a better chance than the others. Then he lost his ferro rod, and that's the turning point. But is he gonna find it back or not? We'll see in the next episode. But that might be the do or die situation where he's gonna decide not to continue on. He's got fire right now. He's got water. Food shouldn't be very much a difficulty for him to find, and he's got a shelter nearby. So he's positioned to continue on for a while, but that ferro rod might just bite him back. We'll see. Wayne's well, Joe is a Canadian. He's from Ontario, and Wayne is Canadian. He's from New Brunswick. And Wayne, I would say he doesn't film maybe as much, but he's the one that's probably the most established. He's got a shelter. He's got everything. he's got the site. He didn't have to move, so he found water nearby. So everything is there. I mean, he's on his way, and the show, they're filming themselves, so we only see what they want us to see, and it's pretty good because you see their state of mind, and sometimes they go on and they have fun, and that's a big thing. I mean, you see the evolution. They get down, the spirit get down, and then it gets up when they find something, or they had something. So Wayne is not in a bad position. He seems to be the one that's the most comfortable with the environment. Is the one that was in the military, so I think is a more laid back character than the others. I have Mitch also. He was challenged a lot because the point where he was seems to be either an island or how would you call that? A point of Earth going into the water, and he's in a bog, and it's really not fun. He's not having a good day, and in water when he was looking for it, when he did the whole point, the whole island where he was, basically had nothing. Marsh, water, salt, and wet stuff. I mean, that's all he had. So when he scouted this island, he heard running water from another point across the pound where it was. Well, basically that's across the inlet. So he has to move. Again, another one that had to take the decision to move. And 10 minutes, I would say 10 minutes after having crossed with an improvised boat, which is very courageous to make that, he found water. It's from a stream. It's not perfectly clean still, but he could at least start to replenish the water in his body. And he had to make 8 crossing on an improvised boat to get all the stuff, the camera gear and everything. So, I mean, these guys, because of the camera gear, they're not traveling light, and it's raining all the time. So it's really a good challenge. I think Alan is the one that's used the most humor right now, and he was cooking a slug he found, and while cooking he used humor to up himself with that, and that's pretty good because you know that when you can do humor to yourself, talking to yourself or the camera, then your spirit gonna go up, and that should be able to bring him along a little more anyway in the show. So we'll see what's the next schedule. The show is really good. I mean, I went through in detail in episode 2 because I took notes, but I find that we see the basis of survival, and that's what's interesting about the show. They don't explain it to you, but they point it out to you, which sometimes will give you the hint of what's going on in their mind, but also sometimes they reveal that, and what's going on with their body, but also how they are. So you see the ups and downs right now, what they have to do, and most of them have channels, so they know that you cannot comprehend everything in this. So they basically guide you through. When they film, they explain to the camera, which is good also. That camera can be your partner for survival. They're alone. They're really alone. And they try to survive. So second show has brought us to almost the 4th day. And there are already 2 guys out. I think there's 8 left, so there were 12 at the beginning. And or 10 guys. Yeah, 10 guys. So 10 guys at the beginning. There are 8 now, and we'll see how that goes. But I don't think it's all to their training. I think it's going to be a lot more on their psychology if they're ready to fight it. If they lose vital equipment, like Joe did with the ferro rod, He might have to tap out at one point. I don't know how sustainable he can have this fire all the time and make sure his condition is maintained by foraging food, water, boiling, and everything. If one thing goes wrong, he might just lose it all. So we'll see. I'm looking forward to the next episode because we'll go in a more in-depth survival situation where you went through the 72 first hours, because most of us train 72 hours to be rescued, because you're supposed to you're not supposed to survive for weeks in the wild. You're supposed to have somebody that decide sorry, to decide that you need rescue at one point, and then have the search party go out for you. So you shouldn't be there for weeks. You should be there for a short period. But that's interesting because that'll put their skill, their knowledge, and their will to survive to a lot of tests. And I guess there's more to come to each of them, because even though they're getting established in camps with food, water, that might not be the only thing they're going to be facing. So the Pacific Northwest, I think it's October or November, is probably the worst season to be out there. I mean, we think about the Pacific as being a idealistic weather, but it can be a inclement thing. And if you're on the Pacific side, which they are, on the Pacific coast of the island, well, it's even wetter and badder. I've navigated around the island, and someday could be bad. Hopefully they won't get any, they shouldn't be getting any snow, but it's going to be cold in the lower 10 degrees C. It's going to be humid and it's going to be wet. So we'll see how that goes. Well, hopefully you like the review of the show alone. It's not a bad show. So if you have a chance, either go on the internet on History Channel or on TV and watch that show. So I'll put the link below to follow the show and see how it goes. So if you like this video, please click thumbs up, leave comments, and share it with your friend. We'll be seeing you in the next video.